All right, here's our video today. Why protein makes you feel full. So you have that nice, delicious steak, porterhouse steak in the back there, and some red peppers, hot peppers. I don't know what this stuff is here. Let's get my pen ready. Actually, the topic, the title actually should be why protein makes you feel fuller than carbs and fats. That's what this. So let's get our pen going here and figure out what this stuff is over here. We don't know. Don't know what that is. Capers maybe. Rosemary over here, sprigs of a rosemary. So, what is protein? Protein, they're macronutrients. So, let's write that down. They're macronutrients. Vital. Like macronutrients, get that R in there, nutrients. So, the other macronutrients we have is fats, which are lipids, and carbs. So, carbs give us the energy in simple terms. Fats can give us an energy also as a backup energy storage. But for the most part, fats help us absorb vitamins and they actually help with hormone production. So proteins, they have so many functions in our body. But for them, basically, they build muscle, they build organs, they build tissues, they build bones, they repair bones, organs, tissues, and so forth. So the question is, why does it make you feel fuller than carbs and fats when you eat them? In fact, when you're eating, the simple answer is this. I'll write it over here. They take longer to digest. That's the simple answer. Dot that I. They take longer to digest. They can take anywhere between 2, 3, or 4 hours more than carbs to digest. And we'll go over that. So again, proteins, they have to be broken down in the stomach and the small intestines into smaller parts. They have to be broken down into amino acids. And so when it gets into the stomach, the gastric acid and an enzyme, which basically is a protein itself called pepsin, will start the denaturing process. And that's a fancy word. So let's get a clean page here. Maybe we'll stick with yellow. So in the stomach, protein has to be denatured. Fancy word. In other words, it has to be broken down. It has to be unfolded. So proteins, they're three-dimensional folds, and they have to be unfolded. They have to be, in simple terms, they have to be broken down into amino acids. So they have to be unfolded. That's what denatured means, right? They have to be unfolded. They have to be broken down into amino acids. And it's starting in the stomach. Like I said, in the stomach, it's going to meet that gastric acid, the stomach acid. It's going to meet gastric acid, which will break it down, and pepsin. And pepsin is an enzyme that will denature it. And from there, it's going to go into the small intestines. And from the small intestines, it'll be broken down even further. So in the small intestines, you're going to have more enzymes coming into play. There's one called trypsin, and that'll help it denature it. And chymotrypsin, another fancy word here. Chymotrypsin. And there's others, actually. So these are just the basic ones that will help denature protein. So just to review again, in the stomach, the protein will be broken down with that gastric acid and pepsin, and then in the small intestines with trypsin and chymotrypsin, which you see here, these two enzymes, breaking it down even further. So why does protein take so long to be why in other words, why does it make you fuller is because it takes so long to be denatured. It takes longer. It takes 2 to 3 hours more. And the reason why is you have to break this down. It has to be denatured, and it takes a lot of these enzymes to break it down. Whereas carbs and fats do not have to be denatured, they're not as complex. So it takes longer to digest. That's one thing you should know. And here's a folded protein. Use red. So this is the protein that we're going in, and denaturing is unfolding the protein. And that takes a process. That takes a while. Now, there's other reasons why protein makes you fuller. It's hormonal regulation. Proteins, when you eat proteins, they stimulate some enzymes. Let's get back to a clean page and get our pen going. Let's do yellow again. So they're going to stimulate protein. Protein will stimulate these enzymes, right? Peptide YY. So it's just PYY. And another one called GLP-1. And these two, what they do is they help stimulate insulin from the pancreas. That's one thing they do. But so a couple of roles we'll put over here. They help stimulate insulin from the pancreas. Of course, insulin is important. Without the insulin, you couldn't get all that glucose that your body requires into all your cells. So once glucose is in your blood, insulin will be stimulated, but it's also stimulated by eating protein. And protein goes through another process than carbs in creating glucose, but that's another video. But another thing that GLP-1 will suppress, it will stop, and this is called ghrelin. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone. So when you're hungry, ghrelin is being stimulated in your body. And so what GLP-1 will do in peptide YY, PYY, it'll suppress ghrelin in your body. And that's a big effect on appetite right there. It's decreasing your ghrelin levels, making you feel full. So in easy terms, what GLP-1 does, suppressing the ghrelin, it's basically telling your stomach, hey, you have enough food. Stop what you're doing. And that's what happens when you're eating protein. And if you're eating anything, right? If you're eating too much of something, eventually your body is going to say the GLP-1 will take effect anyway and tell you, hey, stop what you're doing. So again, let's just review what protein does. It takes longer to digest because you have to denature the proteins. And also there's a slower digestion going on. There's a slower release of the stomach emptying itself when you're eating protein because of the suppressing of ghrelin. It slows the release of ghrelin. And it needs the time to denature the proteins. So that's why when you're eating protein, you'll feel fuller longer than carbs and fats. And by the way, the amount of protein you should have in one sitting is debatable. Some people say anywhere between, I'll write it over here. Sometimes you see these protein shakes, but 30 to maybe 50 grams. Of course, there is debates on this, so you might want to check on what's best. A 12-ounce steak, if we go back to our picture, this looks more than a 12-ounce steak, but a 12-ounce steak could have anywhere between 70 grams of protein if we get the steak back. So this steak may have, right over here, it could have 70 grams of protein in it in one sitting. So you have to be careful on your liver when you're eating so much protein. Of course, I love steak, and I'll eat a whole steak. But anyway, just research on your own on the amount that your liver can take. All right, that's our video today.